Welcome to Food Shrinks.
Hey everybody, I'm Molly Carmel,
I'm Clarissa Kennedy.
And I'm Molly Painstaub.
and we are your food shrinks. We are three eating disorder and addiction therapists. We walk the walk, we talk the talk. We are real life friends, and we are here to share the kinds of honest, funny, and unfiltered conversations we have when no one's recording. Except we're recording. What is on the docket today, Miss Clarissa?
So we got an email about someone who's put down the sugar and that they're in recovery, but what keeps coming up for them is the not enough. I'm not enough. And I think this is so common, and we hear this in sweet sobriety all the time, is like this is the thing that often drives us to the food.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The people pleasing, the striving for people to accept them or to love them, and it's exhausting, and it's like the constantly needing to perform too because they feel like not enough. So I think this is a great topic, and we can certainly also share our own personal experience on it too.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, it's such a good one. It's so funny, right? Like it's about the food and it's not about the food. And it's like, I don't know, I don't love the label codependency, but it's just the quickest one I have, and it's only a 25-minute podcast. I have to tell you, when I went into recovery from my eating disorder, I mean, then I had to stop drinking, and then it was just as my AA sponsor calls them, kind of the human drinks I had to start dealing with, and it was like my not enoughness was so contingent on how other people experienced me,
Mhm.
the kind of like validation I would get or I wouldn't get, or like, and it's still a process for me. I mean, I think it's really a big thing that I have to work on. And for me, so for me, this not enoughness, I mean, the first thing I want to say is I, at the same time, can feel not enough and too much, literally at the same time.
Yep.
And my friend Elisa Kriegel, who you guys know her, anyway, she's like the best couples therapist I know and one of the best polyvagal therapists I know. And she always says that like when we're thinking in such extremes, our like nervous system is usually activated. So if I'm at the same time being like, I'm too much for these people and I'm not enough to be hanging out with them, like my cue does go up to be like, this might not be frontal cortex thinking right now. Like
Yeah.
we may not be in a place, and so I think like that's the first thing for me is like I always have to remember. And so for me, it's a little bit more of like for me, I try to get a little spiritual about it. And so you're hearing all different opinions. Don't worry. But this is what when I can get really spiritual about it and I can get really into my higher self and my wise mind, I always think that that is not the vision that my higher power has of me. A loving something bigger than me. I would call it God. A loving God made me enough. I am enough. And I'm being triggered by something that's making me not feel that way. That's not an absolute truth. And probably I'm personalizing something. I'm making something that isn't about me, about me. And I'm making a lot of assumptions about what's happening. And those are all problems to be solved. But I try to go really spiritual on it really quickly and almost like identify that as like not like a high level thought for me, or like not a high vibration thought or whatever. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have so much compassion for young Clarissa, who was undiagnosed ADHD and also struggled with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, right? Which is that we experience rejection so much deeper, and we're picking up on all these nonverbal cues. And it just really like we're already in a state of dysregulation, and this is just something we feel so much deeper than so many others. And So it was never the, overt things that people said to me. It was the covert things that I believed that I had to overachieve or people please to be valuable. I was never allowed to rest because productivity made me feel like I was worthy. Even if I got like neutral feedback from somebody, I was like, oh, that means I need to do more. And for me, it made sense. Like turning to food would shut all of that down. And so it would like not enoughness showed up in every part of my life. So it was like, well, maybe I'll be an athlete, or maybe I'll like, who do you need me to be? I will be that, and I will be the best version of that you can imagine. And in it, we lose ourselves. And in it, we are hiding all of these parts of ourselves that actually make us authentic and whole. And then we're just like so lost, and it's like this like existential crisis, like what you're talking about, Molly, this like complete loss of sense of self. And yeah, it's like you're just almost like driven to figure out what other people need and become that. And so I think that's where, when we get into recovery, for me, it was like, oh, I can stop doing that, but who am I?
Mm.
And then
Related to that.
starting from scratch, I think. But and just still noticing now when that story comes up, right? Because I always say our state determines our story. And so when I am dysregulated, my story will always be I'm not enough or I'm too much, both. Because as somebody with ADHD, we are always too much for many people. We have a lot of energy a lot of the time. So it's not like we didn't hear we were too much, and we didn't know that like the people around us felt that way. So it's not like those messages weren't real. It's just that we didn't know how to regulate ourselves in that state. And now I think it's actually coming to terms with like loving those parts of me, and actually that being like who special, like what makes me special, and what most people actually enjoy about me, is the too much, and that I don't have to hide that anymore, and that like, and the people that I know are my people, I can be that person around.
Mm. So good.
And I think that has been helpful for me in recovery. But it still shows up, it shows up in this podcast, with you two. And I think, oh, I'm not enough. And they know more than me.
I
Right.
always think that. I'm like, well, they're really smart.
And I'm like, oh, or too much. Like I shared too much today. Again,
I
overshare.
always think that too.
Right.
I'm like, did I start? Are they going to hate me? Are
Yeah.
they going to? Can I just say one more thing while we're
Yes.
just a minute? Because I just was remembering, I went to this treatment I've talked about on the show. I went to this treatment center in my second year for codependency, and they had us do a psychodrama. And in the psychodrama, there was this woman playing my dad, and she had a veil of trauma and a veil of addiction over her head. And then someone was playing my mother, and you can look up psychodrama. It's just basically acting out your stuff. And then my mother, who was kind of turned away from my dad, right? Because she couldn't handle it, right? And then someone was playing little baby Molly. This just reminded me when you said that, Clarissa. And there's little baby Molly looking up at the family at like 1.5 years old. And that therapist, Randy, he looked at me and he said, "You're not too much. That's too much."
Yeah.
And that your story reminded me of that like my not enoughness and too much comes from some really true places, like it was that computer virus was dialed in pretty early.
Yeah, well, and like, with the parents that just want you to be a good girl all the time,
Yeah.
right? So of course I'm too much or not enough, because what can I ever do? It's like love always felt conditional on like behaviors.
Such a mushy podcast. I'm so into it.
What about you, Molly?
It's so mushy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it really highlights, right? It's about the food until it's not about the food because it was never about the food. And the food, gave this buffer And, to your point, Molly, about like you were never too much, like that family dynamic that you actually had no control over was too much. And that's something that I find myself saying to clients a lot too, when they hear those words like you're too much, like, yep, you probably are too much for somebody who's too little or who has too little space to hold who you are in your complete form. And that doesn't make you bad and wrong, it's their limitation. And it's something that I've had to learn over and over and over again, like you guys have said, that there's two sides of the same coin where I can feel not enough and too much at the same time. And it has come from that messaging over and over again. And my recovery has been about finding my voice and figuring out who I am and trying to stand in that truth and knowing that whoever is for me, I will never be too much for, that they will love me exactly as I am. And so just standing in our truth. And so, yeah, I mean, I resonate with a lot of what you two have said. And I would say that's literally probably like the biggest internal battle that I still have at times, especially if I'm feeling vulnerable for whatever reason, like imposter syndrome can really get in there if I'm, feeling particularly, if I haven't had enough sleep or, like a series of events can happen. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm a complete imposter. But at the end of the day, when I can, like when I'm more regulated and I stand in my truth, like I know who I am and I know that I'm not an imposter and I'm just a human being and I'm capable of making mistakes, but I'm also like really capable of being a really good advocate and I'm really passionate about the things I'm passionate about and all of the, and all of the other things that make me me. And now I don't need to go to the food to use it as a buffer. It's more of like a standing in my truth, and not because I'm trying to push people away, but because I kind of want like what's not real or real for me to fall away. Right? Like I want it to be a clear path. I want to walk that clarity. And the only way that I can walk the path of clarity is to literally walk in my truth. So it's not easy and it's not fun. It doesn't feel good all of the time, but like the reward of it feels good, And so it's like this figuring out how to stand in our truth and remind ourselves like I get like this email really made it feel like, well, now the food's gone. And so that's a problem because now I feel too much and I'm like reaching out and I'm using other coping mechanisms with relationships or this or that or the other thing. And like, I think the message that I would want to give anybody who's feeling the same way is just this reminder of like, those are stories, like you said, Clarissa, those are stories that were given to you and they are old stories. Are they still true today? And says who, like, can we consider the source? Like, can we help you find your voice? And you tell us what are your values. You tell us who you are. And then let us decide if that matches with our values, if that matches with like our path in life. And if so, then you're probably like what we would call our people, right? And then we would hang out and we would, have relationship and whatever it might be. And anybody who isn't, it's not because you're bad and wrong. It's just because that's their limitation.
Trying to go back to early recovery. I don't know. I like always think of my sickest self, right? And we are just like, by the way, we are like three recovered gals today. Can I just say, like, we really are like, that's just a story. I have to tell you, I'm just trying to go back to those years. I was really sick with this. And I'm trying to remember what happened to make it so that I could identify that just being a story, that just being my nervous system and I don't quite know the answer. And the thing I was thinking might have been the answer is the two worst answers that anybody can give you to a problem, right? The first one being time. Like I think it just took a lot of time, which is awful, right? There's no worse answer than patience. And the second one, which I don't know if you guys will agree with, was I really think it's when I started to, I don't want to say this in a way that feels shaming to anybody, but like it's like when I decided to take my recovery super seriously and just get super invested in it. And that was like, when I started to not make the dinner plans, when I started to like go to therapy, even though it was like really tight on my budget. Like when I started doing things like big, scary things for me, like just for me, And like, I just remember I was telling the story to a patient the other day where I was like my best friend and I used to go out for dinner every Tuesday night and we'd split sushi and blah, blah. And I was like so positive that when I got abstinent and I was going to tell her that we couldn't split dinner anymore, that I had to have my own plate. That I swear on my life, girls, like I swore she was just going to be like, well, it's been a good run. And stop being friends with me. I swear on my life. And that was a big learning lesson for me because actually she was quite pleased. She was like, wow, that's the first time you're. So I think there's a piece where it's like what we say in Al-Anon, like keep the focus. I think I really put the focus on myself. And when I started to pay some attention to myself, slowly, so slowly, like glacially sometimes, like it started to matter less, not at all. Like this external validation just was less because I had some internal stuff where it's like, wow, I just prioritized myself. Like that's a big, so I don't know if that's helpful to like the listener being like, good for you girls for being so healed. And like,
No,
thank
no,
you.
I
No.
agree, right? 'Cause it's easy to say, right? When we're
So
from
easy to say,
a
hard
nice
earned.
place, but thinking about it, like when does your not enough voice show up the most, right? Is it at work? Is it in relationship? Is it after scrolling on social media? Really just starting to notice those kind of situations, environment can be a big trigger for the not enoughness. I think naming it, if you can get to a place where what does not enoughness feel like in your body, just so that we can start to recognize it's awareness is the first piece. You already have the awareness. So starting to see like, when does it show up? Where does it show up? How does it show up? What happens when it shows up? Do I behave in a certain way? It's all of that kind of information can be really helpful in starting to just like notice like how you can start to work with it in different ways, because like you said, Molly, it's time. So it's going to take time. It's still going to show up for a long time. It still shows up for all of us. We just
Yeah.
heard, like episode after episode, and
After episode.
like but it's like we can manage the not enoughness now. It
Yeah.
doesn't overwhelm us, right? And so it might have
Well, it
used
doesn't cause us to turn to food all the
Right.
never.
Exactly. Exactly. So now we are able to cope with it, and we're able to just be like, oh, this is just that showing up for me today. And
Yeah.
that makes sense. I didn't sleep well. Maybe I'm not hydrated. Maybe I didn't do the things that I usually do to take care of my recovery. Maybe I'm just having like a dysregulated day, and to be able to say that this okay, this will pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's some of the tools I might use when starting to like just awareness.
So beautiful. I think it's time for our takeaways. Quickie episode today, Queens.
All
Is it
right.
is it time for a
Yeah.
takeaway?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can go first. I think my takeaways are just, like a nice reminder of like, I'm not alone. I mean, this individual being brave enough to share this just reminds me like, oh, yep, there's my issue, there it is. And that, we're all just walking each other home, trying to figure this out as we go, that we just need time and practice, and we need the safe spaces to be able to do that, where we can feel like we're not being judged when we try to set a boundary or try to like find our voice, and practice some of these skills. And yeah, just that reminder of yeah, just nice and easy with yourself. Whoever's listening to this who's feeling the same, I think that would be my big takeaway of just like hearing, our stories obviously are like our histories are all different, yet somehow we all have, similar perspectives and beliefs around this kind of thing. And so, that reminder of like, don't compare yourself, just figure out something that you want to try and see if it works for you, and then just go from there.
It's really great. Clarissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like it's that not enough voice is not a fact, it's shame. That's kind of what I'm taking from
Ooh, maybe we need to do second episode on that one.
Like, because it's about like who I am, right? As a person. And we have to remember that shame shuts us down. So it's going to be layered and it is going to be take more time to work with, but that means we just need more compassion through it all. And I love what Molly said too, is like all of us experience it in a different way, but we all experience it.
I remember when Dr. Peter Attia came out with his book. He's like, if you don't know him, he's this very famous, like, health, and he had like a major best-selling book, and he was on some podcast, and he said something like, well, I just didn't really feel like I could write this book.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, well, if Peter Attia, if Peter Attia just feels not enough, what if any of us have a chance in life?
Yeah.
Just kidding. But it was very validating, though. I was like,
It
okay.
is.
I'm like, okay. Anyway, my takeaway is so beautiful. I feel like I owe you guys for the hour. This is like a therapy session. Clarissa, what you said, it's like my not enoughness did not arrive spontaneously. Like that really came from somewhere. That was really dialed into me. That was the coping lesson that I learned from having that kind of childhood and from having that kind of trauma. I forgot that story like while you were talking. And yeah, I'm like in like a compassion bubble right now with myself, and I feel really grateful for that. So thanks for the question listener. You rock.
Totally. So if you want to hear more about this topic or topics like this or something else completely, you can always send us an email at asktheshrinks@foodshrinks.com.
And thank you so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful or inspiring, please hit subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you have a moment, we'd be ever so grateful if you leave us a review. It really helps others find the show and join our community of recovery and hope. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care, and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.